When I was a child in Hong Kong, my father took me to watch a Chinese opera. I noticed something peculiar about the most skilled performers. While others tensed during difficult movements, these masters appeared most relaxed when executing the most demanding techniques. This paradox fascinated me. Why does the beginner grip the sword until his knuckles turn white, while the master holds it as if holding nothing at all? Most seek inner peace by eliminating disturbance. They build walls, create distance, establish control. I once believed this too. During my early training, I developed techniques to dominate opponents, to impose my will through superior force and speed. In 1964, I found myself challenged by a master of traditional kung fu. He didn't resist my attacks. He simply wasn't where my fists landed. Not through speed, but through understanding. While I exhausted myself, fighting against reality, he conserved his energy by accepting it. That night in my apartment, I tore up my notes on technique. I realized I had been asking the wrong question. Not how do I overcome chaos, but how do I harmonize with it? Look at the flame of a candle in a darkened room. When wind blows, it doesn't fight. It dances with the air that could extinguish it. Its very flexibility preserves its existence. Inner peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's a different relationship with chaos. The typhoon affects both the oak and the grass, but only the oak breaks because it resists. What I'm about to share with you transformed not just my martial art, but my entire approach to living. It's about finding strength in yielding, power in acceptance, and stillness within movement. The first principle I discovered is what I call centered acceptance. Most people misunderstand what acceptance truly means. In 1966, I suffered a serious back injury while weight training. The doctors told me I might never kick again. For weeks, I raged against this reality, denying it, fighting it. And in that resistance, I created a second injury. Not physical, but spiritual. My mind became my prison. One evening, lying immobile, I watched a spider build its web near my window. When wind disturbed one section, the spider didn't fight the damage or abandon its work. It simply integrated the new reality, adjusted its approach, and continued building around the disruption. Neither resisting nor surrendering. This is the essence of centered acceptance, not passive resignation, but active integration of reality exactly as it is. Consider how most people react when faced with unexpected change. They resist. They say, "This shouldn't be happening." They exhaust themselves fighting against what already is. How much energy is wasted in this futile resistance? Acceptance is often mistaken for weakness, for giving up. This is a profound misunderstanding. True acceptance requires tremendous strength, the courage to face reality without illusion or denial. It is not saying, "I cannot change this." It is saying, "This is what exists right now, and from this point, I will work." I discovered a question that transformed my practice. Can I accept this moment exactly as it is, without adding my demands to it? During my recovery, I stopped fighting against my injury and began working with it. I developed new techniques that accommodated my limitations. I explored hand movements with unprecedented focus. What began as catastrophe became opportunity, precisely because I accepted it fully. Remember, resignation collapses inward, acceptance expands outward. Resignation says, "I am powerless." Acceptance says, "Within these conditions, what remains possible?" Resignation is an end. Acceptance is a beginning. This principle became the foundation for everything that followed. Without centered acceptance, the mind remains in conflict with reality, creating tension that makes inner peace impossible. With acceptance, you establish the solid ground upon which all other aspects of inner mastery can be built. The second principle might sound contradictory at first. I call it engaged detachment. To be fully committed to the present action while remaining completely unconcerned with its outcome. In 1967, I participated in a karate tournament in Long Beach. Before my match, I observed my opponent pacing, rehearsing moves, visualizing victory. His desire to win created tension in his body, narrowed his vision. When we faced each other, something unusual happened. As he attacked with intense determination to defeat me, I found myself in a state I hadn't planned, completely present, yet strangely detached. I was fully engaged in each movement, every block, every strike executed with total commitment. Yet simultaneously I held no attachment to winning or losing. This paradoxical state allowed me to see openings invisible to him, to respond without the delay of thought or the hesitation of fear. This principle applies far beyond combat. Consider how attachment to outcomes affects your daily life. When you desperately need a particular result, your body tenses, your mind narrows, your breathing becomes shallow. You become blind to alternatives, deaf to subtle information. Many believe detachment means not caring, being passive or indifferent. This misses the point entirely. True detachment isn't about caring less. It's about clinging less. You can care deeply about what you do while releasing your grip on how things must turn out. In my film work, I discovered this same principle. The scenes that worked best weren't when I focused on impressing the audience, but when I immersed myself completely in the moment with no concern for how I would be perceived. Total engagement with the action, total detachment from its reception. Here's a practice I developed. Before any important event, I ask myself, can I give everything to this moment while holding nothing about its outcome? This shifts my energy from the future, which doesn't exist, to the present, which is the only place power resides. Engaged detachment creates a curious freedom. When you're no longer constrained by the need for things to unfold in a specific way, you discover an expansive power to respond to what actually is. Your mind becomes like a skilled sailor who works with whatever wind arises, neither fighting against nor waiting for perfect conditions. This balance of caring deeply without clinging desperately transforms not just how you fight, but how you live. It allows you to bring your full energy to life without becoming a prisoner to the results of your actions. The third principle is what I call emotional fluidity. This understanding came to me not through victory, but through failure. After establishing my school in Seattle, I faced a challenger who provoked me with insults about my Chinese heritage. During our match, anger flooded my system. My techniques became rigid, predictable. Though I won the physical confrontation, I lost the internal battle. My emotion controlled me, not the reverse. That night I asked myself, why did I allow someone else's words to dictate my emotional state? I realized most people relate to emotions in one of two flawed ways. Either they suppress them, creating internal pressure that eventually erupts, or they become completely identified with them, allowing emotions to drive their actions. Both approaches disturb inner peace. There exists a middle path. Think of the ancient Chinese bamboo flute. Its hollowness, its emptiness, is what allows beautiful music to flow through it. If the bamboo were solid, no music could emerge. If it were cracked and broken, the music would be distorted. Only when it is both hollow and structurally sound can it transform breath into melody. You too must become like this instrument, not blocking emotions, not breaking under their power, but allowing them to flow through your awareness without resistance, without identification. During intense training in 1970, I began a practice. When strong emotions arose, fear, anger, frustration, I would acknowledge their presence without judgment. I notice anger arising, not I am angry. This subtle distinction creates a space between you and the emotion. In this space lives freedom. Notice how emotion manifests in your body. Anger tightens the jaw, fear constricts the chest, anxiety churns the stomach. By bringing awareness to these physical sensations, you prevent emotion from bypassing consciousness and controlling your actions. This isn't about controlling emotions. It's about preventing emotions from controlling you. The goal isn't to become emotionless, but to create a relationship with emotion where you remain the observer rather than becoming absorbed. In combat, emotional fluidity allows you to use the energy of emotion without being used by it. In life, it allows you to experience the full richness of feeling without becoming its prisoner. Like a river that flows constantly, yet maintains its essential nature, your emotions can move through you while you maintain your center. Remember, emotions are like weather patterns passing through the sky of your awareness. No matter how intense the storm, the sky itself remains undamaged, unchanged in its fundamental nature. The fourth principle involves what I call mental simplicity. A cluttered mind cannot know peace. In my early training days, I collected techniques, hundreds of them. Every punch variation, kick combination, and defensive maneuver I could find. I filled notebooks with diagrams and sequences. Yet in actual combat, this abundance became a liability. The mind that must choose between too many options hesitates, and in that hesitation lies defeat. I remember a significant moment in 1971. I was training a student in San Francisco who had studied multiple styles for years. Despite his technical knowledge, he couldn't respond effectively to even basic attacks. His mind was searching his database of techniques instead of seeing what was directly before him. I asked him to perform a simple punch, just one. After numerous repetitions, something changed. His movement became more powerful, more present. When I asked what shifted, he said, "I stopped thinking about punching and just punched." This is mental simplicity, not ignorance, but the transcendence of complexity. In Japanese archery, they speak of chidori ashi, the moment when knowledge moves from conscious thought to embodied wisdom. The technique disappears, and only the essence remains. Most people's minds constantly race, analyzing the past, anticipating the future, commenting on the present. This incessant thinking creates mental static that drowns out clarity. The mind becomes like an overstuffed room where nothing can be found when needed. My approach to mental simplicity evolved through 3 stages. First, I learned complexity, gathering techniques and concepts. Second, I refined complexity, eliminating what was unnecessary. Finally, I transcended complexity, moving beyond technique to direct action. Here is a practice I developed. Throughout the day, I would ask myself, is this thought useful right now? Not is this thought interesting? Or is this thought important? But simply, is it useful in this precise moment? If not, I would let it go. Not suppress it, not fight it. Simply open my hands and release it. Mental simplicity is not about becoming thoughtless, but about thinking what's useful, when it's useful, and resting in quiet presence when thinking isn't needed. Like a martial artist who uses exactly the right technique at the right time with no wasted motion. You learn to use thought as a tool rather than being used by it. The peaceful mind is not empty of thoughts. It is simply untroubled by them. It sees thoughts as what they are, temporary patterns of energy, not commands that must be obeyed, not truths that must be believed. The fifth principle is physical awareness. Many seek peace as if it were purely mental, disconnected from the body. This is a profound mistake I discovered through painful experience. In 1970, during intensive training for a film project, I pushed myself beyond reasonable limits. I ignored my body's signals, the tension in my shoulders, the shortness of breath, the racing pulse. One afternoon, I collapsed. My body shut down completely, forcing the rest I had refused to give it. In that moment of complete physical breakdown, I understood a crucial truth. The mind and body are not separate entities. They are one integrated system. When I began studying Western philosophy, I was struck by Descartes' statement, "I think, therefore I am." This reflects the Western separation of mind and body. But in Chinese philosophy, there is no such division. Body and mind are seen as different aspects of the same energy system, what we call qi. Physical tension creates mental agitation. Mental turbulence manifests as physical tension. They are not cause and effect. They are simultaneous expressions of your internal state. I developed a daily practice that begins with a full body scan. Standing in neutral position, I bring attention to each area of my body, starting from the soles of my feet and moving upward to the crown of my head. Where I find tension, I don't fight it. I simply observe it with awareness, and this attention itself often dissolves the contraction. The breath is the bridge between conscious and unconscious control of your body. Most people breathe shallowly, using only the upper chest. This triggers your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, creating background anxiety even when no threat exists. I practice diaphragmatic breathing throughout the day, full deep breaths that expand the lower ribs and abdomen. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest response, creating a physiological foundation for calm. Your posture isn't just an expression of your mental state. It helps create it. When you collapse your chest and round your shoulders, you compress your lungs and diaphragm, restricting breath and energy flow. When you align your spine, allowing it to be both straight and relaxed, you create physical conditions for mental clarity. These aren't separate practices from meditation or philosophical understanding. They are essential foundations for them. In combat, the fighter with greater physical awareness has an insurmountable advantage. In daily life, this awareness creates a background of calm alertness, from which all effective action springs. Remember, your body isn't something you possess. It is what you are. Physical awareness isn't something you practice at certain times. It is a continuous relationship with the totality of your being. These 5 principles, centered acceptance, engaged detachment, emotional fluidity, mental simplicity, and physical awareness, are not separate techniques, but interconnected aspects of a unified approach to living. Together, they create a foundation that allows you to face life's challenges with both power and tranquility. Many people imagine that peace means the absence of difficulty, that tranquility can only exist in perfect conditions. This is an illusion that keeps peace forever out of reach. True peace is not dependent on external circumstances. It is a capacity you develop within yourself. In Hong Kong, I once observed a skilled boatman navigating through a typhoon. While other vessels sought harbour hiding from the storm, this boatman moved directly through the churning waters. His mastery wasn't in avoiding the waves, but in understanding them so completely that he could find harmony even in their violence. This is what I challenge you to seek. Not peace that exists only in isolation and comfort, but peace that remains accessible in your most difficult moments. Don't measure your progress by how you feel on a silent retreat or a peaceful morning. Measure it by how you respond when provoked, challenged, or confronted with chaos. Inner peace is not a destination you reach once and possess forever. It is a practice, a cultivation, a relationship you develop with each moment as it unfolds. Like martial arts, it requires both understanding and dedicated training. Knowledge without practice remains merely intellectual. Practice without understanding becomes merely mechanical. Every principle I've shared with you today must be tested in your own experience. Don't accept these ideas because I have spoken them. Subject them to the laboratory of your own life. Discover for yourself what is true, what works, what transforms. Remember, peace is not revealed in how you perform in moments of calm and ease. It is revealed in how you respond to chaos, disappointment, loss, and challenge. The ultimate question is not, can you find peace in perfect conditions? But, can you maintain your center when everything around you is falling apart? This is the true measure of inner mastery. Not that you avoid storms, but that you bring your full presence to them. Not that you escape difficulty, but that you meet it with both acceptance and power. Not that you remain undisturbed, but that you transform disturbance into opportunity for deeper awakening. This is the art of finding calm in chaos. This is the way of inner peace.